Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something I learned early on in life, and it didn't come from a textbook. It came from observation. It came from watching people, listening, paying attention. Here's what I discovered: people are more perceptive than they seem. That simple truth carries more weight than most people realize. We live in a world where appearances are polished, conversations are rehearsed, and intentions are often hidden behind polite smiles and professional tones. But beneath the surface, people are observing, they're absorbing, they're paying attention. Closer attention than you think. You might believe that your children aren't picking up on your stress, or that your team doesn't notice your disengagement. You might think your audience only hears the words you say, not the energy behind them. But here's the reality. People see the unspoken. They sense tone, body language, and emotional undercurrents. They read between the lines. They hear what you're not saying. Human beings are intuitive. From a young age, we develop emotional intelligence not just through what we're taught, but through what we feel. A child knows when a parent is upset, even if the words spoken are calm. A customer can tell when a salesperson isn't being genuine. A friend knows when you're pretending to be okay. We're wired for connection, and with that comes the ability to detect truth, or the lack of it. This perception deepens over time. Life sharpens our instincts. We learn from being lied to, from being disappointed, from watching patterns repeat themselves. People become emotionally smarter. Even when they don't voice their awareness, they carry it. It shows in their decisions. It influences whether they trust you, follow you, or distance themselves. This is why authenticity matters so much. When you try to hide your true self, when you pretend, perform, or manipulate, it rarely works the way you think it will. Because the people around you are picking up signals. They know when you're not giving your best. They can tell when your heart isn't in it. They feel it when you're going through the motions. And the truth is, the more you try to fake it, the more disconnected people feel from you. On the other hand, when you're honest, even in your struggles, when you show up with sincerity, even when you're not perfect, people notice that too. They respect it. They relate to it. They're drawn to it. Vulnerability has a power that polished perfection can't match. Because while people are perceptive, they're also compassionate. When they see your effort, your humility, your willingness to grow, they often respond with support and trust. In business, in leadership, in relationships, perception is always at play. If you walk into a room thinking you can manipulate or outwit the people there, you've already lost the most valuable currency you have: credibility. But when you walk in with openness, prepared to listen, to learn, and to lead with integrity, people sense that too, and they respond in kind. We tend to believe perception is something we manage, that if we speak right, look right, and act confident, we can control how we're seen. But real perception doesn't come from what we project. It comes from how we live. It's in the consistency of our actions, the kindness in our tone, the integrity behind our choices. People are watching, not just what we do in public, but who we are in private. And eventually, those two sides always align in the eyes of others. So remember, people know more than they let on. They know more than you think they know. And when you start living with the awareness that you are seen, that your energy is felt, and that your truth is always revealing itself, you live better. You become more intentional, more honest. More human integrity and authenticity build influence in a way that tactics, tricks, and manipulation never can. In a world where people are constantly being sold to, persuaded, and marketed at, the power of being genuine stands out like a lighthouse in a storm. Influence isn't about being loud, flashy, or convincing. It's about being real. People follow those they trust, and trust is built on the solid foundation of integrity. Integrity means doing what you say you will do. It means keeping promises even when it's inconvenient. It means being honest even when no one is watching. It's not always the easiest path, but it's always the strongest. Because when people can depend on your word, they can depend on you. And that kind of dependability creates respect, one of the cornerstones of real influence. You might gain attention with clever words or charismatic energy, but attention is not the same as influence. Influence is about impact. It's about shifting how people think, feel, or act, not through pressure, but through presence. And that kind of presence comes from authenticity. When you are fully yourself, flaws, values, vulnerabilities, and all, you invite others to do the same. That openness builds connection, and connection builds influence. Authenticity doesn't mean you have to share everything or always be emotional. It means you don't pretend to be someone you're not. It means you let your values guide your decisions. You don't mold yourself to fit every room. You bring your whole self into the room. And that presence speaks louder than any carefully curated persona ever could. The truth is, people can spot a fake. They know when someone is putting on a show, and even if they don't say it, they feel it. They may still listen, nod, even applaud, but deep down, something doesn't connect. Something doesn't land, because real influence doesn't happen at the surface. It happens at the soul level. And you can't touch someone's heart if you're wearing a mask. Think of the people who have had the biggest impact on your life. Chances are it wasn't the most polished, the most powerful, or the most popular. It was the ones who were honest with you, the ones who stood by their principles, the ones who admitted when they were wrong but kept showing up. That's integrity, that's authenticity, and that's influence. Now, more than ever, people are craving leaders and voices they can trust, not perfect people, but real people, because when you lead with integrity, your actions speak louder than your promises. When you show up authentically, your presence does more than your pitch. And over time, that consistency builds credibility. That credibility becomes character, and that character turns into lasting influence. In your work, in your family, in your community, you have opportunities every day to lead. But leadership doesn't come from a title. Influence doesn't come from position. It comes from who you are, how you live, and how people feel in your presence. Are you someone who honors their word? Are you someone who admits mistakes? Are you someone who doesn't just talk about values, but lives them? Because if you are, then people notice. They begin to listen more closely. They begin to trust more deeply. They begin to follow your example, not because you asked them to, but because you earned it. That's what true influence looks like. It's quiet, it's steady, and it's powerful. So if you want to be a person of influence, don't chase applause. Don't build an image, build character. Be someone who shows up with truth, with consistency, with heart. That's how you lead. That's how you inspire. And that's how you leave a legacy that lasts. Your actions speak louder than words. It's a phrase we've all heard, maybe even said ourselves, but few truly live by it. In a world overflowing with promises, slogans, captions, and declarations, it's not what you say that defines you. It's what you do. Words are easy, they're fast. They can be written, rehearsed, and refined. But actions reveal character. People remember how you made them feel, not what you said. They might forget the exact advice you gave, but they'll never forget the consistency with which you lived your values. If you say you believe in honesty, but lie when it's convenient, people won't remember your speeches about integrity. They'll remember the moment you chose dishonesty. If you say you value hard work, but cut corners when no one's looking, your team won't be inspired. they'll be disappointed. That's the thing about actions. They leave a lasting imprint. They either build trust or break it, and once trust is broken, it's hard to earn back. You can apologize, explain, and even justify, but people will remember what you did far longer than what you said about it. That's why the most powerful form of communication is consistency, not perfection. Nobody expects that. But consistency in living by the standards you set for others. Look around you. The most influential people in your life, the ones you respect the most, they didn't earn that respect with flashy words or empty declarations. They earned it by showing up, by doing the hard thing when no one else would, by keeping their word when it would have been easier to back out, by sacrificing comfort for principle. That's what people remember. That's what inspires change. That's what builds legacy. It's easy to post a quote about resilience. It's another thing to keep going when life punches you in the face. It's easy to talk about kindness. It's another thing to treat people well when you're tired, angry, or under pressure. It's easy to preach about leadership. It's another thing to lead by example, to serve when it's inconvenient, to listen when you'd rather speak. In all of these cases, your actions are the loudest voice in the room. What you do consistently forms your reputation, and your reputation is not built by what you intend, it's built by what you deliver. Intentions are invisible, results are not. You might have meant well, but if your actions caused harm or disappointment, that's what people experience. The truth is, people don't judge you by your best moments. They judge you by your patterns. And if your patterns are unreliable, no amount of good intentions will fix that. But here's the good news, the reverse is also true. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be real. You need to be steady. You need to align your actions with your values, your decisions with your principles, and your daily behavior with the kind of legacy you want to leave. That's when people start to listen. Not just to your words, but to your life. That's when your influence expands. That's when your impact multiplies. So the next time you're tempted to explain yourself, defend your choices, or prove your worth with words, pause. Ask yourself, what are my actions saying? Are they reflecting who I say I am? Are they aligned with who I want to be? Because whether you're aware of it or not, you're communicating every single day. By how you show up, how you treat others, how you face adversity. Words can inspire, but actions confirm, and in the end, it's not the promises you made, but the steps you took that people will remember. Let your life be the loudest message you ever deliver. Respect others' intelligence and experience. It sounds simple, but in practice, it's one of the most underestimated principles in communication, leadership, and personal relationships. Far too often, people make the mistake of assuming others don't understand as much as they do, or that their own perspective is somehow more valuable. But when you overlook what someone else knows or has lived through, you miss an opportunity, not just to connect, but to grow. Everyone you meet has a story. Everyone carries a lifetime of experiences, lessons, and insights. Some they've shared, many they haven't. Just because someone isn't loud about their knowledge doesn't mean they don't have any. Just because they don't have the same education, background, or status as you doesn't mean they haven't learned things you never will. Life teaches people in 1,000 different ways, and those lessons don't always come with a degree or a title. When you treat people as if they have nothing to offer, they feel it. Even if you never say it out loud, your tone, your attitude, and your behavior will communicate it. And nothing erodes trust and connection faster than making someone feel unseen, unheard, or undervalued. On the other hand, when you genuinely respect the intelligence and experience of others, you open the door to meaningful dialogue. You create space for collaboration, not control. You create mutual respect instead of silent resentment. True leadership isn't about having all the answers. It's about creating environments where everyone's input is valued. The most effective leaders, the ones people trust and follow, are the ones who listen. They ask questions. They seek advice. They understand that wisdom doesn't always speak first or speak loudest. Sometimes the greatest insights come from the quietest voices. If you're wise enough to listen. Respect also means being humble enough to recognize that your way isn't the only way. You might have experience in one field, but that doesn't mean you know everything about life or how other people should live it. You may know the theory, but someone else might have lived the reality. You may see the problem from the outside, but someone else may be dealing with it from the inside. When you honor their experience, you not only build trust, but you also gain understanding you couldn't get on your own. This principle applies in personal relationships too. Whether it's a spouse, a parent, a teenager, or a friend, people want to be respected, not just loved or supported, but respected. That means valuing their perspective, acknowledging their life experience, and recognizing that their path may be different from yours, but no less valid. When people feel respected, they open up, they listen. They contribute, but when they feel dismissed or talked down to, they shut down. And once that wall goes up, it's hard to bring it down. In business, this respect becomes even more crucial. Your team members, clients, or partners all come to the table with their own knowledge and insight. If you assume you always know best, you'll miss opportunities for innovation and growth. If you assume someone can't contribute because of their age, background, or title, you're likely to be proven wrong, and not in a good way. Great leaders recognize that everyone has something to teach, and everyone has something to learn. So when you walk into a room, whether it's a boardroom or your own kitchen, enter with the mindset that the people around you have value. Don't assume you need to teach them. Assume they have something to teach you. Be curious, be open, be humble, because respect isn't just about manners, it's about mindset. It's about seeing the worth in others, not just based on what you know, but based on what they've lived. In the end, respecting others' intelligence and experience isn't just about making them feel good. It's about building stronger relationships, making better decisions, and becoming a more grounded, effective, and compassionate human being. And that's the kind of person who leaves a real mark on the world, so let me leave you with this. People are more aware than you realize. They see the truth behind your words. They feel your sincerity, or the lack of it. And they remember not what you promised, but what you delivered. Influence isn't something you demand. It's something you earn through integrity, through authenticity, through respect. Every day, with every choice, you're sending a message. Make sure that message is one you're proud of. Live like people are paying attention, because they are. Lead like your actions matter, because they do. And respect those around you, not because you have to, but because they've earned it, just like you hope to earn theirs. That's how you build trust. That's how you leave impact. And that's how you become someone worth following. Thank you.